is still here. So today I'm taking out a plane that we don't see out on the battlefield very often. If I could type properly, that would make it so much easier to communicate with the enemy team. We're taking out the ME-209. So this is a Tier 8 German fighter. It's on the BF-109 line. We're going to deal with a bunch of heavies. It's actually really good for us.
Let's roll.
It's really, really good for us. This plane is... So, it's on the BF-109 line. It ends up with the 1101, right? Directly after this plane, the style changes completely at Tier 9 and Tier 10. But this plane follows in the footsteps of the previous planes, but kind of more to the extreme. Great altitude performance, as you can see we're getting here. Unfortunately, like the Tier 6 and 7, the damage output is kind of minimal, but there's an ace up the sleeve with this particular 30mm cannon that you didn't have with the Tier 7. And you certainly didn't have anything like that with the Tier 6. And that's this, you can see it's got ridiculously good range. We'll take ridiculously good range. So utilizing that range is really important to making this particular plane work. Yes, at Tier 8 you finally do have a little bit more maneuverability than you had at the previous tiers. Built my plane more for speed though, with my equipment layout, and we'll discuss that more once we get back to the hangar. But to make this plane really shine, it's getting this 30mm cannon that's on the center hub to hit. You have two 20mm cannons here, relatively short range, and you've got this much longer range 30mm cannon. It's really helpful. It's not a necessity, but I found it helpful if you separate your secondary cannons from your main cannons, so it allows you to fire these and cool off your 30mm cannon. This XP-75 is not paying attention to us. He sees he's got bomber in his eyes. So let's take advantage of that situation. We need to be capturing sectors, so let's capture sectors. Once we're up 3-2, then we can maybe defend a little bit, but in the meantime, let's use our speed, let's use our mediocre firepower to get these sectors. Maybe. I know I overheated my cannons, so shame on me there. And let's head to the center and see what we can do. Oh, all caps. Oh. So we've got a heavy fighter there. Definitely should not be going after a yak. You can clearly outmaneuver us. Let's go after this heavy fighter. Clearly not outmaneuver us. I'm just gonna shoot the ground because it's in front of me. So that's literally the only reason. I need to get some space between me and that Yak 15. Oh, there we go. Air supremacy. Not quite what we wanted, but I guess we'll take it. Oh, there's the Yak again. Oh, I thought it was the Yak 15. Do they have a Yak 15? They do have a Yak 15. He's just dead. Okay. Firing just my 20s so that we can cool off the 30. Guess we're going to cool off the 30 just by turning. At this point, I do not want to be capturing sectors. We're up 4 sectors to 1. I'm glad we're not with air supremacy, so that way we can hopefully farm some personal points here. Let's see, 262. Too many planes coming at me at once. Oh, is he going to try to turn? No, he's not. Good. I mean, good for him. Haha. Good for me as well. See if I can't get some health back. Get some wrench. wrench would be nice. There we go. .262 that knows what he's doing. I like it. It certainly makes my job more difficult. But he's not trying to capture this sector. I would have thought... So he knows not to turn around and dogfight me, but I would have thought that he would have turned around and... tried to kill me. Let's move along here. Okay, so they are doing, actually, they're doing a really smart thing by capturing all the sectors that we're not specifically in. So that could definitely lead to our losing this battle. Yak 3 is up a lot higher than he should be. We're still up by so many points that I'm not stressing out, but this could easily screw up for us. So that being said, okay, we just captured a sector, so we should still be perfectly fine here.
Way to go!
Yeah, that 262 is definitely at least capturing sectors and things of that nature, so good on him. Ooh, I'm out I-260ing the I-260. If anybody's ever played the I-260, you know what I mean by that as far as sniping is concerned. Well, look out, buddy! Alright. Let's go ahead and see what we can do versus this XP 75 again. You're gonna get distracted by a bomber again. Yeah, he's probably not very happy. So this Yak 15's up too high though, again. Don't know what it is with Yaks flying higher than they're supposed to.
Unable to proceed. Return into base. Do you copy?
What I need to watch out for now though is that XP 75 is gonna reload. I hit my shots. There we go. There we go. There, goodness gracious, it took a lot longer than I wanted it to. Whew! Didn't know if that guy was going up or going down. Alright, cool. I guess we need to go for this guy because the game's almost over. Ah.
I'm proud of you, pilots.
Whew.
Head back home.
I got a McCampbell out of that too. Nice. Yeah, so that's what the ME-209 can do. It really comes down to map awareness, map awareness, map awareness. Because you've got that long-range cannon, you need to be paying attention to what's coming in and what's going out. And determine what you need to do to deal with that. So let's head back. Alright, so we were able to get 16 kills out of this battle. Okay amount of aerial damage. Nothing too crazy for sure. And what you actually find with this particular plane is the actual damage output isn't all that extensive. Actually, I think this might be the lowest damage per second tier 8 fighter. Now that the Americans got the machine gun buff. But it's not about the raw DPS. It's about the ability to get that 30mm cannon to get a couple shots in before the enemy can even do anything about it. Something else that can come in really handy with the 30mm cannon is very often you will get enemy fighters, P-80, P-51, Spitfire 14, just going head-on versus you. Because their damage output is more than yours. But if you're able to get that 30mm cannon to directly hit them, you can kill them very easily, actually, before they really even get a couple shots into you. Simply because your range is so much greater than theirs. But it's about that accuracy. Previous battle to this that I forgot to record, we actually lost that battle though, was me versus a flight of Spitfire 14 and a P-51H. Being able to get that 30mm cannon to go head on versus things like Spitfire, huge difference in your ability to interact with the enemy fighters. So overall, had a pretty darn good battle there. We were able to deal with the top personal point or top rated person on their team. Their 262 obviously knew what he was doing, but just wasn't able to be as effective at actually capturing sectors, it looks like. But I don't really know. I wasn't paying too much attention to him other than when he almost killed me there. The great thing about this plane is it does have a lot of flexibility. Let's take a quick look and compare it to the other higher altitude Tier 8 fighters. All right, so we're just going to compare to a handful of other fighters here. I'm specifically looking at fighters that have the exact same or very similar altitude performance rating number. There's a grouping of fighters that are kind of the mid-range as far as altitude is concerned. Slightly less than this plane and this grouping. So things like the JL-1A, Spitfire 14, Vampire, Key 94, I-250, the P-80A, all those are higher altitude, but not quite to this level. And when you're interacting with those planes I just named off, you want to try to pull them up to as high of a level as you can, because that will gear the interaction more towards you. If you're still in your white altitude bracket, but you've pulled them up to their yellow bracket, they're losing airspeed, they're losing their maneuverability factor that they might have over you. And so it'll put you at a bigger advantage. So keep that in mind in general versus those planes I just named off. Planes we're looking at and comparing are going to be planes with very, very similar altitude performance. The P-51H, the TA-152, the Horton 229, and the ME-209, right there in the same bracket. You're going to run into a lot of P-51Hs and a decent amount of Horton 229s. TA-152s, not so much, but you're going to run into two different types of pilots that fly the TA-152. Those that don't know what the heck they're doing or don't have a really good pilot or plane built, which is probably going to be the majority of the TA-152 pilots. You're also going to run into those TA-152 pilots that have a 10 or 12 point pilot and have maxed out their accuracy on it and minimized the RNG of those cannons. And they're going to be just hell on earth because TA-152, if it's actually hitting, is a very strong plane. Thing is, very rarely hits. But I'm showing it because it's the same altitude performance. What you are going to notice here, the base gun armament stats, the 209 is the weakest. Why is that? We have one 30mm cannon and two 20mm cannons. The TA-152 has three long-range 30mm cannons. They're very slow firing, but they hit very hard when they do hit. The the Horton 229 only has two 30mm cannons, but they're auto-loading. And so you can reload them relatively quickly as long as your guns haven't overheated, and you can get 3 or 4 shots out very, very quickly and completely melt an enemy aircraft if you're on target. P-51H has what used to be very weak 50 caliber machine guns, maybe overbuffed on the cannons, on the machine guns there. That's a different discussion though. So you've got 6 very strong now 50 caliber machine guns. The P-51H can really melt down enemy aircraft. And the thing with the P-51H is it's built now to kind of be a jack-of-all-trades plane. Where the P-51D and A, where it's pure altitude speed fighters, God forbid you turn against anybody, the P-51H actually has maneuverability. Surprisingly a good amount of maneuverability. Don't go against the Yak-15. You probably shouldn't go against Spitfire 14s as far as dogfighting is concerned. You use your speed against those planes. But against these other planes here, the P-51H is going to be a formidable opponent. Keep in mind, my P-51H has ultimate equipment, specialized, of course. Same with my Horton 229, specialized with ultimate equipment. And so, my P-51H and a lot of P-51Hs that you're going to run into are going to be able to outmaneuver you when you're in a 209. They're going to outspeed you when you're in a 209. Granted, my 209 is not ultimate equipment, so we'll figure that out in a little bit when I look at the details here. But you need to be mindful of these 3 specific fighters because your altitude advantage is going to be useless against these 3 fighters. So what is going to be your advantage? Well, it's going to be different for each plane you're going against. Let's talk about the P-51H simply because it's going to be the most common plane that you run into. Your only real advantage against a P-51H is the ability to hit long distance shots. Your 30mm cannon on your 209 has a 3,000 foot, basically 1,000-meter range. And so you want to be able to take advantage of that. That's your only real advantage when you're going in an interaction against a P-51H. So what does that mean? It means map awareness is key. You need to know where the P-51H is before he knows where you're at. Because everything else about his aircraft, his maneuverability, his airspeed, and his consistency of his guns is going to outduel you. So if you're able to get a shot or two or three before he can react, that's going to completely change the interaction, and you're going to be able to have a much better chance of coming out on top. When you are going against something like a 229, which is another plane that you'll run into quite a bit, this has the same range as your cannons have. So you're not going to have that as your, your option. That being said, map awareness is going to be incredibly helpful, and your maneuverability is going to be key when you're interacting with a 229 and when you're interacting with a TA-152. Versus both these planes, they have long-range 30mm cannons, same altitude performance, same or better airspeed. It's about your maneuverability. You need to utilize your maneuverability when you're going against a Horton 229 or a TA-152. Dodge their shots, get behind them, and then start pumping bullets right into them. That's where you're going to come out on top. That's how I've excelled with my 209 when I'm having to interact with a 209, Horton 209 or a TA-152. Doesn't work every time because some RNG is taken into account there, and sometimes those Horton 30mm cannons are going to hit you. But if you're able to dodge those and then get around them, and you'll run into a lot of 229 pilots that try to dogfight you. You're going to come out on top once you start dogfighting because you've got the maneuverability. So the 209, excuse me, the ME-209, I really do enjoy this plane. It is not an easy plane by any means to fly because you do rely on the 30mm cannon doing the majority of your damage. Your 220mm cannons they're there, but they're just they're supplemental. And so my build has been around accuracy. First, let's talk about the pilot. I've got a 7-point pilot on here. I experimented with going with Engine Guru 1, but I realized that, you really need the accuracy on here. So I've got Marksman 2 for my build. And because the plane's specialized, I've gone with Aerodynamics Expert, and we'll talk about that in a second, but it helps improve all of your speed and maneuverability characteristics for the equipment that you're using for that. And so that's my 7-point pilot. Nothing over the top, but the first 5 points are really important to get this cannon on target. What's some other things that we can do to get our cannon on target? Well, the other things we can do is by putting your gyroscopic sight on here. There's literally nothing else that's going to be a viable option for the ME-209. Cockpit armor is a joke. You don't put that on your fighters. G-suit, okay, but again, it doesn't matter how turny you are if you can't get your cannon to hit. Navigational radio equipment is actually something that could be thought about simply because it makes sure that you're able to start the engagement before the enemy sees you. But if you're not hitting your shots, then it's not all that helpful, right? So your sight, your gyroscopic sight is first and foremost important on this particular plane. For the forward firing weapon, this might be a little controversial, but I've put the long gun barrels on here for 2 reasons. One, the most obvious reason, it extends the range of my cannon, and it's already a very long range 30mm cannon. By extending it even further, I'm able to attack targets that are even further away. And the other reason is because the negative impact that you have from this equipment, all the equipment has a negative impact to balance out the positive impact. The negative impact on this particular piece of equipment is the burst length. It's not a negative impact to the accuracy, right? So if we're looking at reinforced bolt carriers or gas-operated action, the firing accuracy is negatively impacted, meaning that my cannon shot is not going to go exactly where I want it to go every time. Long gun barrels does not negatively impact that. And I've actually re-rolled the bonuses to, one of the bonuses is at the accuracy is even more improved. So not only am I longer range, but I'm actually going to be better accuracy than with gas operated action or reinforced bolt carriers. As far as my other equipment is concerned, this is kind of flexible. I've got 1 on the airframe for maneuverability and then 2 on the engine for speed. Conceivably, I could switch this around. You've got 3 different equipment slots for speed and maneuverability, and that's what I've plugged mine into, is speed and maneuverability. Which ones you use is really up to you. This setup I do particularly like. I might switch it up and change to something like polished skin on the airframe, and then change from the gas turbine to the lightweight power unit for maneuverability on the engine. We'll see. It is all kind of up in the air because of that flexibility. What's funny is with the P-51H, because it doesn't have a forward firing weapon slot, and you have 4 airframe and engine slots, it actually makes it a little bit easier. You're able to fully maximize the airspeed and the maneuverability of the P-51H because you don't have to use a gun slot. You don't even have to think about it. You just maximize the speed and maneuverability of that plane. Because this plane has a gun slot, you've actually got to think about what is going to be best for your playstyle for your airframe and engine. As far as consumables are concerned, the first 4 consumables are my no thought, no brain thinking consumables, going with the first aid kit. I need my pilot back in there to get his accuracy back up if need be. Pneumatic control assist. That's if I do get stuck in a dogfight with a P-51H, or I'm accidentally getting into a dogfight with a Spitfire. Hopefully I can outmaneuver him with pneumatic control assist. And engine cooling. I've got universal ammo because it's cheap and it helps. This slot I might change out. I've got improved mixture control on here to try to maximize my airspeed. I do know that if I get my engine knocked out, I'm basically a dead man because I can't put it back in. So I've thought about putting manual engine restart on here. I just haven't done it. I know the repercussions of my choice here. I recommend everybody else do manual engine restart unless you're willing to live life on the edge with the improved mixture control. The manual engine restart is probably going to be your best bet. So I do need to maximize this plane, get the equipment changed out to ultimate equipment one day. But in the meantime, I really like the way that this plane works. Being able to kind of take pot shots at people and get a couple shots in before they even realize you're trying to kill them is absolutely great. This is a perfect plane for going against heavy fighters and most multi-role fighters because you can outmaneuver all those and you've got the airspeed to keep up with them if they try to get away with you. And so, yeah, the ME-209A, a really enjoyable plane. Not an easy plane to play, but I figured I'd post a video on it because you just don't see it out all that often, and I think that's kind of a shame. Anyway, I'd love to hear your opinions on the ME-209. Is this a plane that you were just happy to get past and get to the wonderful MEP 1092 and 1101? Was it a plane that you kept? Was it one that you found easy, hard? I'd love to hear in the comments down below, or you can always feel free to hop in my Discord. The link to that is down below as well. We can continue the conversation there. Thank you so much for hanging out with me, and I hope you have a great day. Bye.